Absolutely. Good morning. My name is Raymond Ege. I'm with the Department of Computer Science at NIU. Welcome to this first webinar in our cloud computing effort, Cloud Computing Price War, what it means to you. We will have two presenters today. One is Nilesh Lond. He is with Cloud Genius. That is the company that is partnering with NIU to bring you this beautiful, very useful Cloud Genius training and certification program. And as I said, I'm Raymond Ege. We will probably have a fairly uh, useful, short, but also short presentation, and then we will open it up to any questions that you might have about the price war, about cloud computing, and about our program efforts in general.
I think that's awesome, Ray.
Are we on the second slide? Yes. Okay, so this is basically the outline of what we want to talk about today. We will kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in the cloud space. Obviously, there's many providers. So the focus today will be on what does it actually cost to be to be a player in the cloud computing context. Prices are down all across the board, but there also seems to be a little bit of a thinning out of who is providing what. We will actually take a look at the actual current prices at the moment. From a user's perspective, we are probably all aware of what Google Drive will cost here, if at all anything cost you. But we will also look at what it costs from an enterprise perspective. And then we will kind of look at ourselves, at our own effort, and ask, so how does it compare? How do these prices compare to what it costs to run an in-house IT shop? I was hoping that we would have many more participants. Right now we have only 6 on the list, but I was hoping that some would be able to report on actual costs of running your own web server, website, in-house service to your customers. Okay, and then the question is, so what if we now have decided that this is a good point in time to jump on the cloud bandwagon? The question is, what does it take to get there? And of course, there's quite a few elements that it takes to get there. What we as NIU, as education institution, can offer there is we can help in smoothing the transition, in trying to educate and train the professionals that are involved in moving to the cloud. And so we'll talk a little bit about what kind of courses we offer and what kind of certificates we make available. Nilesh, you have anything to say in terms of overall before we
Yeah,
get started?
yes, absolutely. The key benefit, as you know, cloud computing brings to us is in the context of economics. It's essentially a business game where people can now rent versus buying machines upfront. Like if you remember, like maybe 20 years down the road, we used to have these gigantic IBM machines and Sun machines. They used to be expensive. And if you want to start a business, it took quite a bit of upfront investment for anybody to like shell out money and then get these machines in house in the business, deploy them, run the configure them, and maintain them. That was quite a bit of an upfront challenge. It was a lot of upfront capital investment. And what cloud does essentially is brings down that capital cost and brings it down to zero because you don't pay anything upfront whatsoever. What really happens is, you get to rent a very expensive machine all the way, that is available from variety of cloud providers at throwaway prices. If you really go and look at, and we'll, as we progress along, we'll give you some examples of what pricing structures look like. But at the lowest price point, you can find that Amazon will give you a machine to use for 2 cents in 1 hour. So you can get a proper 500 MB RAM running some operating system, get a computer in the cloud for you, and pay only 2 cents for 1 hour of usage. And if you stop using in the third hour, then you pay only 6 cents of US currency, and that's it. That is really affordable. That's the transition of, if you look at all that dollar figures and translate them into balance sheet, and what you will see that there is no capital upfront investment. It is just going to operating cost, operating expenditure. That's the beauty. So, if you're renting a car, a very expensive, beautiful car, you can just pay by the hour. Or even in Google Compute Engine, they go up to the extent of saying paying by the minute these days. And that's even sweeter if it brings financial agility as we talk about it. So those aspects are really what are driving economics and economic advantage in the cloud. Big companies want market share and they are dropping prices like crazy. I mean, it is really crazy. I'm not just exaggerating, but if you really think about it, it is really low prices to be able to run a machine in the cloud for like maybe $6 or $7 a month. And that's amazing. That's the opportunity in the economic space. Back to you, Ray.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's dive into the actual topics here. First, I mean, we all know what cloud computing is. I mean, Nilesh kind of outlined what we're doing. So it basically provides computing power as a commodity via the internet, and we know the internet is ever present. All of us are connected to the internet 24/7, be it in our office via our workstation there, be it on the road with our cell phones, with our smartphones, and now there's even in our car. Not only talking about hands-free systems, but rather most modern cars today, they are internet connected. And so all of these allow us instant access to computing facilities. There's really two perspectives to it. So one of them is that we as users more and more opt for anywhere accessible services. I mean, the typical example there is email. In the old days, email was delivered to an endpoint. So, for example, in your office context, email was delivered to your machine in your office, and that's where it was. If you were at home on the weekend, you had a hard time reading the email. So obviously that was the first kind of place where this centralization, this providing the computing power elsewhere kind of took hold. So email today typically delivered to an email server that is somewhere, and by somewhere we mean in the cloud. It stores the email. It is accessible from anywhere, from your car, from your smartphone, from your office, from wherever you are. And that has kind of now branched out into other anywhere accessible services. Very popular at the moment is storing information in the cloud and then having it accessible anywhere you need it. I mean, simple examples there are Google Drive, for example. Microsoft, I'm not so sure what it's called nowadays, but maybe Nilesh knows better. It was called SkyDrive, but I think there was a renaming going on. It's now called Microsoft OneDrive. And it makes storage, again, a commodity. Rather than storing files on your office computer, and then if you're home, you say, oh, where was it? Or if you're storing files on your office computer at home, you're in the office and say, oh, where was it? File sync allows you to access the files anywhere. So the question is, how do we get there? Obviously via the internet. And the driving force here is the bandwidth, the connection speed that we have to and from. It doesn't really make much difference whether the file is stored on your local disk within your computer or whether it's stored on a cloud server. To get to it is a click, and there you have it, affair. It also allows you very easy sharing. Not only can you see what you have, but you can set it up so that your colleagues, your whoever is able to get to it. And now this model, and now it's branching out further, contact management, whatever, what have you, other apps are following this model that the service is provided in the cloud and that service is provided anywhere. So that's one perspective. I mean, in cloud technology terms, this is actually called software as a service. The second perspective is that companies that want to provide services, entrepreneurs or other big companies that have a service to sell, they opt to offer their services not via their own physical hardware in their own company, but rather offer the service via rented computing power via the internet. I mean, of course, the obvious advantage there is that they don't have to outlay the capital, as Nilesh just pointed out. And of course, the other advantage is that you only have to pay for half of the bandwidth. Normally, you have to, if you're providing services, of course, you have to have the connect pipe from your in-house shop to the internet. If you rent a service from a cloud computing provider, the pipe is there. I mean, I think we don't have to worry about that. Google is not connected to the internet. It has bandwidth galore. Okay, so that's the point here. There's really two aspects of cloud computing. I mean, when we typically talk about cloud technology, there's actually three. One is software as a service. Second one is infrastructure as a service. And then in the middle, there's platform as a service. I mean, in this kind of simplification, I'm kind of highlighting the two areas. One is software as a service versus infrastructure as a service. In infrastructure as a service, a company would basically, rather than providing their own computer and connectivity to the internet, they rent a computer that is already in the internet and install their services on that internet hosted service. Nilesh, any other comments as far as cloud computing introduction?
Unmute myself. Yes. So I was muted. I'm talking to myself. So the thing I was going to briefly mention is this concept of, like Ray mentioned, about OneDrive. And there is, Dropbox and Box.net and a variety of service providers. And by the way, as you probably know, many of these companies are backed by either venture capitalist firms or gigantic corporations like Microsoft and Google. And what they are doing is giving away some free storage, like Dropbox will give you 2 GB free, bring a friend, give you 500 MB more, and you can keep on adding. I think Google will give you maybe 6 or 10 GB free as Google Drive. Microsoft OneDrive will give you 7 GB free. And if you're a corporate customer, they will give you 1 terabyte included in the pricing. So it's kind of mind-boggling. And I think Google dropped the prices again in the context of Google Drive and enabled storage for, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's like $2 for 100 GB or something like that, ridiculously low prices. And what really means is, it's one thing to have a low price. What really it means is that now I am, by the way, in Seattle and Raymond is in the Chicago area. We are able to collaborate with each other on joint documents. As you may have already heard, these storage services enable you to collaborate with your team members across the globe, wherever they are, using modern tools, such as in the context of Google Drive. We can create a shared document, edit it concurrently, and store that all in one single place. So what it means to you is that you don't have to have this problem that we used to have before, is I create a version and I send it to, say, Pawan Kumar, and Pawan is sending to Daniel or Charles, and these are the participants. I'm just randomly naming them. You guys, I'm just picking your names and assuming that you are a team together, and so you're collaborating on a given piece of document. You're all sharing in a common shared folder location, all hosted in Google Drive, for example. You can concurrently edit a file and prepare something that you want to be able to do. Imagine that you're a Salesforce and you want to sell and create a proposal to your client. You can quickly hack together a complex response to an RFP in maybe 10 minutes, because you're a team of 7 or 8 people now, collaborating on a given piece of document, all stored in that Google Drive. All of you have that same document. You can concurrently edit and finish the task of responding back to an RFP in a matter of 10 minutes, which would otherwise take maybe a couple of days for you to email it around, get the versions under control. I changed this one. Is that the latest one? These problems have essentially disappeared. And the services in the cloud enable that. And pricing is low, as you can think of. It's really, really affordable, like $2 for 100 GB. And many of us who have been using these services actually have a ton of free space already. So we find it really attractive and lucrative. The opportunity right now, as we see in the space of cloud computing, is that vendors are competing, and it is an opportunity for us, the end users, to make use of those resources to create new services, to create new businesses, to understand these technologies, to understand how to make best use of them in a business context, create our own services and offer them to our end users, our customers, to make money out of it. That's the opportunity really in front of us right now. Back to you, Ray.
Great. I actually have some examples of some recent developments. You already mentioned that Microsoft OneDrive, their subscription model for the business If a business signs up for this service, they will get 1 terabyte, storage capacity, a quota of 1 terabyte. Can you imagine that? 1 terabyte of storage. And by the way, that is per user, not per business. This is per user. Man. It's really the prices are plummeting here. You were mentioning that you can get like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 gigabytes, but that was a month ago. Sorry, the world is really changing quickly. 10 gigabytes and over is really for a regular user is the commonplace today. Google at the moment is still below that but they have the market dominance. That's why they're not going at it that quickly. But just look around, do a search for cloud storage space, and you will see that 15, 20 gigabytes are easily obtainable for free, for absolutely free. Google actually has just recently announced a plan where they are providing unlimited storage for $100 a year. Now that is also, it's $100, but still, imagine you have a choice. You could purchase an external storage drive or some NAS system for your office or for your home office or for your small business for a couple $100 and store 2-3 terabytes on it. But again, the question is, can you reach it? It's accessible from where you are. Of course, there are some there's some technology solutions to make that data available to you in the cloud wherever you are. But most commodity internet service that we as regular enterprises, small business or home users are using are not symmetric, they're asymmetric. So you typically have one direction down that where you have a high capacity of your bandwidth, but on the way up you have a very small capacity. So it's really not useful. It's not typically viable to just say, okay, let me buy like a 3 terabyte, 5 terabyte, 10 terabyte NAS system, and then I store everything on there. You have no backup. You have no support. Now think of the flip side of that. $100 for unlimited storage, man, that is quite attractive. Okay, you can store whatever you want, and it's accessible too at a moment's notice anywhere, and it is maintained for you. If the power goes out in your system, let it go out. Okay, Google will have provisions to make sure that the power doesn't go out for that. Okay, but there is one thing that you have to be a little bit aware of, which is that I'm just reading the message here, sorry. A recent development was that Ubuntu One. Ubuntu is a provider of the Linux operating system, very popular open source operating system. And they had provided a service similar to Google Drive called Ubuntu One that offered 5 gigabyte of free storage just for signing up. And they are an example of a company that has dropped out of this business. They basically said that, they're not continuing it anymore. So they just send a little email around saying that as of June 1, you better look for another storage elsewhere. So not all is rosy here, but as it turns out, there's lots of venture capital out there for companies to start up and to become providers here. Now, if you select a provider for yourself, as Nilesh said, you should look at who is behind it. Obviously, if Microsoft is behind it, I would trust that 1 terabyte to stay around for a while. If Google is behind it, I will trust that $100 per year for unlimited storage is around for some time. I signed up for Copy.com the other day for 20 gigabytes for free. At first, I thought maybe, Copy.com is maybe not the greatest of all companies, but as it turns out, it's actually backed by Barracuda, which is a larger, enterprise that hopefully stays around for some time. Okay, so this is the price picture on the, storing information, making it available via the internet picture. Nilesh, you have anything to add?
Yes, I believe there is a question from Dan who's asking, can I use this kind of storage for my Macintosh Time Machine? That's an interesting question. So I think I should answer that question. The question being, Macintosh Time Machine. So if you remember, Macintosh Time Machine is this method of going back in time to get the files I used to have 10 seconds ago, 10 days ago, 10 years ago, whatever that time frame is. So you can basically go back in time, what was I working at that time, and go to that time and bring that file back from history. It's like time machine. That's the concept. Now the protocol operates and expects a local area network connected or a locally mounted disk. And by the way, these cloud storage solutions like OneDrive and Google Drive are not locally mounted. They are mounted over the internet, and by the nature of the internet, the bandwidth on the internet is small compared to your local area network bandwidth, and even smaller than what you have if you have a direct connected hard disk. So the simple answer to your question is no, I would not recommend you using these storage solutions as a backup destination for your time machine backups. They are primarily useful for storing documents, pictures, files, maybe videos, or whatever objects you create as a user in the business context or in the personal context. It's a place for you to store, share, collaborate, edit documents, but not a good target for time machine. Thank you, Dan. And so now on the questions regarding the aspect of recent developments in pricing, the aspect that I would like to be able to mention is like Ubuntu has, of course, Ubuntu 1 has been discontinued. The other services like Ray mentioned about, who's the company behind, that is a critical aspect to be able to look for if you are looking for a long-term solution for a storage product or storage prices. But storage is just one aspect of cloud. In general, there are three things to look at from a cloud services provider, and those three things are compute ability, meaning the CPU itself, storage, of course, being one of the important ones, and the third aspect is network bandwidth. How much connectivity, how much thick or fat pipe does that provider provide to you, to your business directly? And so if you compare these three things, compute, storage, and network cost, you need to take into account all these aspects of using a particular set of, for a business problem that you want to solve, using cloud services, compute, store, and network. You need to be able to assess a total cost of ownership from a long-term basis, or rather I should say total cost of renting, because you're not really owning these machines and these tools and services, you're renting them. So total cost of renting over a period of say 3 to 5 years. That's the kind of estimation that I think in the next few slides we'll go through in giving you examples of running a machine in the cloud with a variety of providers for a given kind of workload. What would that look like? And so Ray will talk about that in one of the subsequent slides. Thank you, Ray.
Okay, great. So let's move on then to the actual prices that are being discussed at the moment. As we said, the major cloud computing providers such as Amazon, Microsoft, Google, HP, Rackspace, on and on and on, they have lowered the prices. I think the picture that we're seeing here is that as cloud computing is being employed more and more and more, these provider companies are actually getting a better handle on their cost, and it seems that they're passing their cost on to the customers. There was probably a lot of uncertainty when these cloud companies, providing companies, that started up, and that they weren't really sure how it will work out. But ultimately, the way the price picture will work out is that it will eventually mirror Moore's law, that computing power is just increasing. I mean, at a fairly substantial rate. And so recently there was like this publication that coined a new law called Bezos Law, named for Amazon's chief executive officer, Jeff Bezos, which is defined as the observation that over the history of the cloud, a unit of computing power, its price has reduced by 50% approximately every 3 years. So that's really kind of a reflection of that as companies are using the cloud from a providing it as an offering, but also from paying for it as a service, there has been a kind of a readjustment. There has been a kind of an alignment to the basic fact that we had seen over the last 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, that computing power is an ever increasing or ever decreasing, price-wise decreasing commodity. Let's look at some actual numbers. Okay, so here are some numbers that I just pulled up this week from a website called Cloud Vertical, okay, which is in the business of comparing prices. And so I kind of listed the top 5 vendors: Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Rackspace, and HP. I mean, just for space, I didn't include the actual product. I mean, for Amazon, it would be like Amazon Web Services, EC2, Elastic Cloud 2, and so on. So I just kept the name of the company here in the first column. Let's look at the first column here. There we see how much would a computing unit cost. And when I say small computing unit, I mean, think of it as you go to Best Buy, buy a CPU, buy a computer itself. So, and you look at, so what kind of a processor speed do we have? How many gigahertz does it run at? And also we talk about, so how much memory does it have? And so on. So the kind of smallest units that you're talking about here is an entry level box with about 1 GB of random access memory. All of these are now, if you look at them, they're probably in the mid $10 range. Rackspace and HP are still a little higher, but as you look at their lowest unit, you have to kind of also look at how small the unit really is. For example, the Google number of $6.64 to rent the unit for a month is really for their tiniest of systems that actually has less than 1 GB of random access memory. But again, the question is, if you are an entrepreneur, you want to put your foot in the internet, you want to provide a web service, you want to just have like a website up and make it available. If you run that continuously for a month, the cost to you is $6.64. I mean, that's really please, the kind of capital outlay that is required is minimal. And then, of course, the advantage of renting the unit from a cloud provider is that, so what if you are all of a sudden very popular? So what if you need additional capacity? Then there's the second column. So what kind of capacity is available? Prices here vary greatly. See, the smallest is $670 for Google's largest offering, which is a multi-CPU, multi-core system with 64 or more, 128 gigabytes of memory. I mean, a significant computing powerhouse. Okay. Amazon offers a bigger one. Okay, so but again, it's not necessarily the point that Amazon seems to be much more expensive than Google. You really have to look at the actual system that you are getting. The point here is that there is variety. You can start at $664 a month, and you can scale it up to a system that costs you $670 a month. But hopefully, that $670 a month is relative to significant computing that you're providing. So there is a definite ratio of you will get something for your money. The two additional columns are one for storage and one for network bandwidth. The storage column here, you can see that how much does it actually cost to then store something in the context of renting that unit. And you see the prices there are in the $10 range at the moment, okay, for 100 gigabytes. So think of if you would go out today to Best Buy and buy a disk, okay, a terabyte disk. How much is a terabyte disk nowadays? It's probably less than $100, but you can see that reflected here. And so it seems that the actual prices here are getting close to the price for the hardware, for the actual hardware. So maybe Bezos' law will kind of eventually mirror Moore's law. And then the next column is the network bandwidth. Actually, in the slide here, I'm mentioning network I/O, meaning input and output. But the way all of these compute power provider, cloud compute power providers measure here is they don't measure inbound to them, but rather this is only outbound from them. There's no charge for inbound. I mean, so as in the context of a website, the actual HTTP request to fetch a page is free, but then the delivery of the page to the client, of course, that you pay for. And so here the prices are, as you can see, 10, 12. It seems to be fairly uniform. The only one that is a little cheaper is Google, but that's probably a reflection of the fact that Google is really in the business of providing fiber all around the world. And so they have invested heavily in network infrastructure. So you can see the reward for that to a certain degree. But anyway, the point is, if you want to be a entrepreneur, and if you want to put your shingle out, as they would have said in the old days, go to any of these places for about $10 a month. This is for a month, $10 a month. You're able to have a outward-facing website, outward-facing service provider of some sort that has attached storage capabilities and also is internet connected at speeds that you could probably barely afford if you would try to do that in-house. Nilesh, would you like to add something to the current picture? I mean, and maybe perspective in terms of where we're going from here? How low could it ever go?
Yeah, I think I would like to, maybe if I can quickly take some request a control so I can share my screen. Is that possible? See if we can do it. Otherwise, I'll just talk briefly. If you are unable to request control and take that, you are in control. Okay. So now I think I should be able to project, I guess. Let's see if I can project. Share my screen. There you go. Desktop application. And so what you're seeing on my screen, I guess, and correct me if you're not able to see, is I'm going to show you is a website. Are you able to see that?
We can see it, yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So this website, if you can look at, so I see Pawan Kumar says yes. So look carefully what's going on in this site is not one of the listed providers that Raymond was talking about. But what you see here is, if you look at simple pricing for solid state drive based machines, they're SSD, right? You know, SSD is very efficient and high performing disk. Look at the pricing reduction from this relatively less known provider of machines in the cloud. They charge you $5 a month, give you a 5 and 2 MB RAM, 1 CPU, 20 GB solid state disk, and 1 terabyte of transfer of data between that machine and outside the planet, like wherever you are, your customers are. And so if you get this kind of a machine, you can get a pretty decent computer at a very, very low price, even lower than Google that you mentioned. And so the idea here is people are dropping prices like, I cannot even have a good figurative way of describing what that is. Machines are going to be a commodity, and the real value is not going to be in providing commodity, because commodity is a commodity business. So if you're selling a commodity, like, you know, like a dollar bill, if you look at a $1 bill you have, that $1 bill I have is exactly the same that a $1 bill maybe Pawan has, right? It's this concept is called fungible. Are you able to see me typing and writing?
Yes.
I guess so. So Luan says yes. So the fungibility aspect of a dollar bill is same as any other dollar bill or any other dollar bill is fungibility. Now this concept will come into play when you have a machine that you very succinctly define, say 500 MB RAM and 1 CPU and some 20 GB SSD. If you define this configuration very succinctly, somebody's asking a question. Charles, can you, Ray, can you please address that question? Charles has a question in the chat window. So if you define a unit of compute, something maybe like this, what will happen is people like this DigitalOcean or Google or Amazon or any of these providers, if you get to the point where people are creating machines, they will become standardized, and the pricing, like right now you have a $5 per month price, they will further go down all the way to what is known as commodity pricing. And at that time, it doesn't even matter whether your machine is from DigitalOcean or Google or Amazon. Right now, these providers are trying to communicate that, we are different, we are better than the other people, and that differentiation will go away over time, right? The differentiation aspect will dilute, and that leads to a strong power, or a balance of power shifts to consumers. So consumers will win. Consumers or customers, meaning you will win against the supplier, right? The supplier here are people like Google or Amazon, or this company I mentioned, DigitalOcean. So the supplier has some strength because they are trying to differentiate, but over time, if you commoditize and standardize, you will win, because the differentiation that these guys have will be diluted over time, and the power is shifting to you. Now the opportunity, again, as I mentioned, is up to you to make use of these services that these companies are providing. And that's the kind of a quick essence summary that I had to be able to discuss with you. And I'm going to see how I can shuffle the control back to Ray. So I'm stopped sharing and releasing back to Ray. You can take control, Ray.
I'm trying. I was hoping that it is shared.
Back, Ray. Go ahead.
Is it? Are we back? Okay, great. Okay, so as we said, and there was a question while Nilesh was talking about whether this is comparable to electricity. I mean, eventually it will get that way. Currently, electricity is the same no matter which provider you get it from. So there's still a degree of variability at the moment. I mean, so if you're looking at Amazon versus Google versus Microsoft, the question is, so what kind of CPU? I mean, what kind of base system do they provide? It's typically a CPU with memory and this, but then of course it also runs an operating system. And so the question is, which version of the operating system, what kind of base context? This goes a little bit into the discussion or differentiation between, it goes to the discussion of whether it's infrastructure as a service. I mean, if in its true definition, it would mean just the bare hardware. But then, of course, the next question is, what is actually running on top of it? What kind of platform do we have? And so, of course, the question is it a Windows server? Is it a Linux server? Is it an Apple server? So that brings it into the discussion is, are we talking about infrastructure as a service or platform as a service? And so as you as a customer try to select a cloud computing provider, there's a little bit of variability in there. So as the question was, is it like electricity? It will eventually get there. And as we are selecting a cloud computing provider, we would want to stay as much as possible at the level of it's just electricity. It is interchangeable. Okay, but of course, that you will have to very carefully look at as you select one of these providers. Okay, so I just wanted to point out that we are not the only ones that have recognized that there is a price war going on. This is from a recent article in the Wall Street Journal. Actually, it was April 15th, just recently. And as you can see, it also takes a look at the prices. The Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Compute Engine are all listed here with an average price of about $400 a month, which is comparable that we had seen on the previous slide, just adding up. For a fairly heavily visited website, you see 50 million monthly page views. So that is what you could expect to pay for at these commercial vendors. But the question is, how much would it cost you to provide that in-house? So again, assume you're an entrepreneur, assume that you're a medium-sized company that wants to provide an additional service to the world and make money on it. So their estimation of providing a similar, fairly heavily used website with about 50 million monthly page views is $1,200. And see, that is a significant difference. And of course, it's written here as if that is just a monthly cost. But that's not how the in-house providing IT power works. I mean, in order to be able to provide that service, you as a local company, as a small company, would have to purchase these machines. These machines will not cost $1,200. They will, over a 5-year amortization period, will probably then contribute to that $1,200. But right now, you will have to purchase the compute power to serve those 50 million customers. And so that's probably more in the order of $20,000. And the question now is, how is it connected to the internet? Who installs the operating system? Who maintains the operating system? You need people, you need employees to run this. Okay, so you have the same questions of the compute power, the store capability, the network connectivity. You have that, but you don't have it doled out in small amounts over the month, but rather you will have an initial capital outlay that is significant. So that's one big problem here. And the other, of course, problem is that, so what if your business plan projects that you are having a humongous business interest in this, and you project 20 million monthly page views. So you get your capital in order, and you purchase your $10,000 computing power, and then all of a sudden 50 million page views materialize. There you have healthcare.gov. Your system will go down. Your reputation is down the drain. Okay? So that will be the problem. So right-sizing the capacity is, of course, much easier in the cloud. If you need more compute power, sign up to the management console at Amazon Web Service and add some capabilities. If the 50 million monthly page views that you had projected are not materializing, go to the dashboard and reduce it. Your price will go down, your cost will go down. So it's much easier to scale the provided capacity to the actual need. Nilesh, you have anything to add here?
Right now, I think let's keep continuing, and we'd like to open up for discussion also with folks who might have questions.
I just noticed we're at 10:47.
Yep.
Okay, so we gave an overview of what the prices are. Prices are coming down. That's the basic idea. There's a question of whether it's water, whether it's electricity. Of course, for that, a lot of training and education is needed, but we are standing ready to help that. So I would like to open it now for comments and questions. Let's go ahead.
If it is possible to unmute everybody, that will be awesome. So people can just ask away. We have, I think about 10 people now in the chat.
Are we able to unmute? In the chat area, I see that it says that people are typing, but the question is, is it possible that we can give them?
Yeah, I think we'll figure out audio controls. Let's figure out. So ask away your questions in chat, and we'll try to answer them in the chat window and as well as on the open mic. We'll try to do that. Go ahead, ask your questions if you have. I know some of our. So Charles has asked this question: what is involved in getting certified, and what does it provide the company or person being certified? I think let me take that question. Essentially, certification is a piece of recognition, exactly what it is. It's a piece of paper that shows that you have what it takes to get and accomplish a particular specific task. You have the skill set to accomplish certain actions to enable business activities using technology in the cloud. But the real bottom line is about gaining those skills to be able to use cloud services today. And when we talk about services, we talk about not just using software on the cloud, but also the core aspects of the underlying technical aspects. What does it mean to be able to define cloud, take an industry survey in terms of understanding who the players are, what their capabilities are, and when it applies to a business context, what can we as a business entity do with these tool sets available out in the industry? That's the focus we have in the certification program to begin with in the technologies segment in the first month of the course. As we go deeper into the course, we use modern methods such as which is known as developer operations or DevOps. And if you think of it, I'll give you a recent example of a security problem that came up. You might have heard of. It is called Heartbleed. And you might have also heard the Revenue Canada, the Canadian IRS. They took, I think, about 6 hours of time to fix the issue regarding Heartbleed. And in that 6 hours window of opportunity, a teenager in Canada stole social insurance numbers. It took Revenue Canada 6 hours. Only if they had taken my course here, they would have taken 2 minutes to patch their entire cloud. So we teach techniques and methods of managing your cloud infrastructure from an operations management perspective using modern open source tools such as Chef is one example that will help you as a person who knows how to administer a large number of machines out there for your entire business. And in the context of like if you compare what used to be a system administrator just a few years ago, or maybe 10 years ago, the sysadmin administered a large machine. The definition of what a system was one computer, or maybe 2 computers. Today, we have thousands and thousands of machines out in the cloud for a given application if it's a really large scale application. And you have the example of a Heartbleed issue coming up, and you want a quick solution right now, otherwise you're impacted. Your customer data is lost. Your money is lost. And that becomes a challenge. So we teach in the classroom. In the second month, we focus primarily on what is known as DevOps, or specifically use an open source tool for that, which is used, by the way, by Facebook, by Google, by Amazon, and most of the large companies that want to be able to become agile with their cloud infrastructure. And that's where these tool sets come into play, and we focus deeper into those segments to make you as a participant in the classroom familiar with what we have in the industry today, with the tools that we have, and make use of on an actual hands-on experience basis. Our classroom is essentially what is known as a flipped classroom, meaning, in a traditional sense, a class would be that the person, the instructor, the professor will come and teach you in the class. He'll give you a lecture and you go home and you do your homework. That's the old style class. And what we do in this segment, in this particular coursework, is that it is a flipped classroom, which is you do the class, the lecturing happens on your own time, in your home. Maybe you are having a coffee in Starbucks. You watch the video lectures on your own time. You don't do that in the classroom. Instead, what you do in the class is hands-on exercises. So we have experts like Ray in class in Chicago, in Naperville specifically. The class starts in Naperville soon. So in Naperville campus, Ray will be there with other people helping you out as you are doing actual assignment, actual homework, actual project in the class. And that is something that we really take pride on. We make sure that we really identify those people who want to succeed in the class to be able to make it big when they go back to business or go back to whatever they are doing, is to really understand and really learn and apply these principles in the context of business using cloud technologies. That's the focus of this coursework. And that's what we try to drive in the 3 segments we have. The third segment that we have in the class essentially is focusing on architectural aspects of cloud computing, which is around, if you think of a business problem, you identify potentially either your own existing employer where you're trying to solve a particular problem and take that as a case study, or if you're looking for your next big opportunity, you identify a potential client or customer and think, or maybe go and discuss and meet with them and see if you can help them out in a particular solution for their problem, and take that problem back into the classroom, work with us, work with me. And by the way, I also participate in the classroom just like this. So I join in from here. Ray is there in person in Naperville campus. And we'll also have other people helping out, and we'll bring industry experts from outside to come and speak to you as needed. And the focus will be for you and each one of you to create that particular project and accomplish that in the context of cloud computing, and deliver that to your target customer, to your target audience, while getting some help in the class itself. So those are the three segments in the classroom we have, which is talking about overall set of technologies, going deeper, managing operations, really solving complex business problems. Like I gave you an example of cloud security through Heartbleed issue, fix the machines in literally less than 2 minutes, as opposed to take 6 hours that Revenue Canada took. Unfortunately, only if they had taken our class, that would have been awesome. So that's the quick summary, and that's a relatively not so short answer to your first question. Let me also go back and read other questions so I can answer them.
Can I just take it here for a second? I mean, there was a question about the security. I just wanted to point out that, I mean, today we wanted to focus on the price picture of cloud computing. We will have another webinar next Thursday at the same time. The specific focus will be on security. So I think obviously we all are aware of security. The Heartbleed breach problem just is still on our mind. So I just wanted to point out that don't worry, we will have another webinar for that.
And probably we'll be running these on a periodic basis, and we'll bring topics of interest. Like right now in the area where I live, in the Seattle area, we have a series going on focused on DevOps, the developers and operations people working together to accomplish business agility. And if you read that blog, we have a Cloud Genius blog. If you can I can maybe type it for you in the chat window for the blog. You can go and read. There are articles that you may want to be able to review, and that is interesting material if you want to actually do some exercises in terms of understanding what it means to be able to make your business agile in the cloud from an operations perspective as well as development perspective, and produce a solution for your business that is much more efficient. Just like what big companies are doing very efficiently already. Think of Facebook, think of Google, think of Microsoft, think Amazon. How are they running their businesses? You can gain that similar level of agility in your business if you adopt these principles that we are trying to run in form of a series. And that series is happening right now in Seattle. We'll replicate that in Chicago very, very soon in the upcoming weeks. So that will be the focus. As Ray already mentioned, the next week, Thursday at 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock is Seattle time. In your time zone, it will be 10 o'clock. So same time, essentially, same time next week, same place. We will talk about cloud security, and that's the next program. What Ray is showing you, I think, is the URL for Cloud Genius blog that you can go and read more about. And we will have a recurring series of such activities, and we'll eventually come in Naperville and have a face-to-face discussion. So it will be more lively and more, people can participate and ask much more meaningful and impactful questions and have them addressed. Let's read other questions that they may be there in the tool set. I'm just reading through the question sets right now. Are there security features or guarantees built in the prices of the mentioned providers? So that I'm not sure. I don't want to butcher your name, but the name begins with the letter G. That person has this question: are there security features or guarantees built in the prices of mentioned cloud service providers? I would blatantly say no. They do not provide any kind of guarantee of security. Security is essentially your responsibility. It is my responsibility to keep things that we have secure. It is for us to make sure that what we really value is protected. Our assets, we need to protect them. If we don't do it, somebody else will take care of your asset, and you don't want that. And that's a given fact of life. Let's understand that there is no guarantee implied or explicit or implicit in whatsoever in cloud. You have to make sure that what you're using, how you're using the cloud services, you design it for security to begin with so that you do not get surprised. That is the best way to operate and think about in the context of security. And I hope that answers the question I'm sorry, I cannot even pronounce that properly. So apologize. The name begins with letter G. It's Giuseppe. Thank you. Let's take the next question. Jim Morenz. Sorry for butchering your name if I am. I'm sorry, Jim. Jim says, from an implementation standpoint, who is defining requirements in a larger company? Personnel, time frame, CFO, CTO. Let me read that question carefully. Who is defining the requirements in a larger company? Whether company is large or small, who defines a requirement? The answer is very, very simple. It is neither the CTO, nor the CFO, nor the CEO, nor the dude on the floor. It is the customer who defines what they require. And if these CEOs and CTOs cannot understand that, they are doomed. That's a practical answer. The customer defines what they want. If you are not able to deliver that, they would not buy it. That's the real person who defines what is the requirement. And essentially, that's where you begin, is to understand what people want. Those who will pay you money, you need to understand what they want and produce exactly that and give it to them when they want it at a price they can afford to pay. So they will gladly pay you. That's the only way to succeed in business. It is not the CTO, CFO who define requirements, and if they're doing it wrong. The customer does it. The person who's going to pay, that person defines requirements, should be defining requirements. That is the only way to succeed.
Great. So I hope that answers your question. We had quite a lively discussion for an hour. I don't want to keep you too long. I think the basic idea is that the webinar is short and sweet for 1 hour. I would hope that you join us again for the next installment. It will be on cloud security, same place and same location. We will probably send out some reminder email. Make sure that you sign up. Thanks and goodbye.